This is how Jeremy Bullock's fight against the Ironman Travis Fulton ended with such a brutal slam, although Jeremy looked like he entered the cage with great confidence that he could defeat his more experienced opponent. Today we have an unusual and rare compilation of knockouts with a slam, which is sometimes used by top wrestlers who like to imprint their opponent into the canvas. And this is especially true for Rampage Jackson, who can be called the real king of slams, but we'll return to him a little later. Let's start with one of the most extravagant MMA fighters, Crazy Horse Charles Bennett, who although is inferior to Rampage in skill and regalia, but in the ability to blow up Wanderlei Silva's ass remains the best of the best. Jokes and antics of Crazy Horse are already a real YouTube classic, and his highlights seen even by those who are not particularly interested in combat sports. It was only the second pro fight of the 20-year-old Bennett, and his rival was the American Todd Carney, who was nicknamed Crazy T.
The boxing background in that boxer stance right now, and Bennett Crazy Horse.
At the first seconds, Horse picks up Todd's leg and sticks him with a slam, and then goes to the armbar. Bennett didn't succeed in finishing the fight with a submission, but Todd was completely under his control. Horse bumped his head with elbows and threw him at the cage like a toy, and at the 3rd minute the fight was over. After another fall, Todd landed his head on the canvas and lost consciousness. So in such a bright way, Crazy Horse earned his first victory in mixed martial arts, and later issued a couple of knockouts with a slam, but his fights are difficult to find on the network since he mostly fought in not the most famous leagues. One of the funniest knockouts happened in the fight between the smashing machine Mark Kerr and Yoshihisa Yamamoto. Mark at his peak at UFC tournaments was sending everyone exactly to hospital bed, and even the most skillful martial arts masters trembled in front of this beast. All this was until he stumbled over the more perfect machine Igor Vovchanchyn. So at the time of this fight, Mark had a record of 13 victories and 3 defeats, and actually he already didn't look like a machine. For the Japanese Yoshihisa Yamamoto, things were even more interesting. Out of the last 7 fights he lost 5, and his overall record was 13-16. This was one of the most ridiculous knockouts in Pride history. Mark classically went on legs and transferred the Japanese to the ground, but when he landed, apparently he entered the canvas with his head and lost consciousness. The fight lasted only 40 seconds and the victory went to Yamamoto. The only little bit embarrassing question is how the switched off Mark pulled his hand out from under the Japanese, and this creates some certain thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? Write in the comments, let's talk about it. As I said in the beginning, the compilation of slam knockouts is simply impossible without the king of slams. During the Pride, Quinton Jackson crushed everything that moved, and especially when the opponent was slightly inferior to him in weight. The fact is that almost all Japanese fit this description, whom he struck into the canvas with great love, but it's especially worth highlighting his fight with karateka and kickboxer Masaaki Satake that took place at the Pride 20 tournament.
Satake. Alright, now, okay, there's the jab. Oh, left hook by Satake, and quit with an uppercut! Nice!
Rampage goes through Satake's punches and clinches at the ropes while beating the Japanese kidneys.
Let's do it. He's gonna do it. Oh, what a slam by Quinton Jackson!
Jackson carefully straps Masaaki with seatbelts and launches him on his airlines, which are guaranteed to land hard. On the ground, the Japanese looks absolutely helpless. Jackson, from side control, bombs the poor man with his knees to the head and does whatever his bloodthirsty soul desires. So there was a little perspective for Satake in this battle, except for another free flight on Jackson Airlines.
Out, back up. There's gonna be a slam. Satake doesn't move.
When the Japanese was finally able to get to his feet, Rampage grabbed this passenger and performed a suplex, after which the fight was over, as it looks like Satake got a back injury due to the fall. So Rampage won the fight in a dominant style, and his airlines are blacklisted as an unsafe carrier to watch out for. Rampage briefly hid and temporarily shut down his airline, but 2 years later he resumed his old business. This time he had a fight with the Brazilian tiger Ricardo Arona, who by that time had lost only to Fedor, and that was very equal fight. And also beat Dan Henderson, Murilo Hua, Guy Metzger and Jeremy Horn twice, so Tiger was in a very good shape and on a streak of 6 wins. Arona starts with powerful low kicks, which he kicked like a baseball bat to the legs of Rampage, and then the rapprochement and the Brazilian closing the guard forces Jackson to go down to the ground. Lying on his back, Arona tried to finish Quinton with an armbar a couple of times, and then fired a burst of machine gun axe kicks, after which it seemed that Jackson was ready and Arona knocked him out, since Rampage lied low and didn't react to these blows in any way. But the most important thing is that the referee didn't think so, and the fight wasn't stopped.
And I told you, he picked him up and slammed him to the ground.
He's out! He knocked him out!
At the 8th minute, Jackson puts Arona into his catapults and launches into Nirvana. When Ricardo falls, he flies into the canvas with the back of his head and then bounces up into Quinton's head, so in this situation it's not clear why exactly the Brazilian was knocked out. But one thing is for sure, it was one of the most insane knockouts in history, and it's not surprising that it was Rampage's account. Another failed knockout was performed by the top wrestler, the Olympic silver medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, Matt Lindland, who fought Falaniko Vitali at the UFC 43 tournament.
Submissions are Lindland's kryptonite. Oh, anyway they can go down and he does it, it's over.
Already on the 2nd minute of the first round, after fussing at the net, Matt decided to throw the opponent with a suplex, but everything didn't go according to the plan, and when falling, he flew headlong into the canvas. The knockout turned out to be strange but very iconic, since it's the only clean knockout that Matt has made in his entire career. In December 1997, Frank Shamrock became the first UFC middleweight champion, after submitting Kevin Jackson by an armbar in just 16 seconds. At the next tournament, Frank faced the first belt defense, and his rival was a Sambo wrestler from Russia, Igor Zinoviev, who was the champion of the Extreme Combat Organization and had no defeats by that time.
That goes in the file.
Are you ready? Let's get it all!
Oh my!
He's out! He's out cold!
After 22 seconds, the fight was over. Frank made an amplitude slam and finished Igor, who broke his collarbone when falling, and this fight was the last for him in mixed martial arts. There's an opinion that Igor ended his career because of this injury, but in his interview he said that after his recovery he also performed in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and UFC didn't even pay for his treatment and left him alone with his problems by writing him off to deep stock. Afterwards, Igor was expecting a fight from UFC, but the organization was delaying his return as much as possible, and eventually didn't provide him with this fight.
Slam specialist! He had to get his arm out so the triangle didn't happen. He's out!
This such a brutal knockout Gerald Harris issued at the Legacy 63 tournament, and it is curious that his rival Brian Cobb came out with a solid overweight, but this didn't stop him from checking out Harris Airlines, one of whose nicknames was the Slam King. In addition to Brian, the more famous fighter for the general public, David Branch, with whom Harris fought at the UFC 116 tournament, and for this knockout, Gerald Harris took away the cash bonus for the knockout of the evening, and Branch got his first defeat in career. But all these failures from Karen Lindland pale before the fight between Shintaro Ishiwatari and Kazuhiro Ito. The fighters are not the most popular, and probably only the most sophisticated MMA fans have heard about them. Kazuhiro tried to stop his opponent with an armbar, but the light suddenly went out and the movie ended. Shintaro lifted Ito for over a meter and stuck his head into the canvas. Such severe fights sometimes happen in Shuto and pass by a wide audience. Well, and lastly, we have a bout with Tito Ortiz that took place at the UFC 30 tournament. This was his second belt defense, and the challenger was the now passed away fighter Evan Tana, who was one of the first to use elbows in the ground, and he began his career through self-training and videotapes.
He slimmed down, he said, I'm in the best shape of my fighting career.
In this fight for Evan, everything ended very quickly. At the 30-second, Tito, having worked in a clinch, made a slam that knocked out Tanner tightly and allowed Ortiz to retain his champion belt and continue to dominate his weight. For today, these are all the slams that I have prepared. If you want to continue this collection, throw the names of the battles, which can be included in the second part, in the comments. And also, if you liked the video, like it, subscribe to the channel and press the bell to always be in touch and not to miss new episodes.